Like, I just have to figure out whatever, and then it'll be consistent. And that was driving a habit of hustle, which I don't want. And I can continue to do the work that's worked for me all along. And I find my nervous system more regulated.
Yeah.
I think you said in one of your messages, you can approach your work with more playfulness when
Yeah.
it
Fun,
doesn't feel
have
like,
fun with
yeah,
it. Yeah, absolutely. And you just say, okay, I'm going to try that. And it doesn't work. I was keeping my job going. I was building this business and I hit burnout the opposite way, of trying to basically do two jobs in the same amount of hours or just basically working every evening and seeing clients in my lunch break and all of this sort of stuff. It got too much to balance the two.
yeah,
I was sort of always waiting for this elusive tipping point. When do you get to this tipping point where actually you know that the business can carry your salary on
yeah.
its, and then actually then thinking, well, hold on a minute, what, like, do I want that? Do I
Mm.
want, because actually I like being part of a team. I like having an office to go into and I like sharing what people have done at the weekend and I like getting holiday pay and
Yes.
sick pay and pension contributions. Yeah, so there's lots and lots of benefits to that. And actually, I have a perfect balance that I work term time. I have a term time contract, so I'm off on
Okay.
the holidays with my kids. And
Perfect.
well, it really forced me to cool back and say, okay, we can't just grow for growth's sake, right? Like you have this idea of what success looks like, really forced me to pull back and think, what does my version of success look like? What would that look like on a kind of daily basis? And then really that helped me to just live in the moment of what I've got. So I've scaled back the business, I've scaled back my job. So I've dropped hours at work, I've scaled back how many people I work with. And then now we just have this nice balance. And right now, success is what I'm experiencing right now.
You're listening to the Brave OT podcast with me, Carlin Naik. This podcast is all about empowering occupational therapists to step up, level up, blaze some trails, and maybe engage in a little conscious rebellion in service of our profession, our clients, our work, our businesses, and living our mission wholeheartedly. We are all about keeping it real, doing hard things, unhustling, being curious, exploring, growing through our challenges, and finding joy, fulfillment, and vitality as we do so. Really, we're OTing ourselves and each other. I hope you love this episode. As an OT, have you ever encountered someone in the midst of doing your work that feels like your professional soul sister? Someone whose unique perspective, values, and ethos makes you feel less like a lone wolf with your own similar way of seeing OT and our place in the world. Well, that's what I found in today's Brave OT guest when I met her online a few years ago. Laura Bremner is an occupational therapist in the UK who is a specialist occupational performance coach. One of the things I really respect about her is how she has cut through the loud noise of boundless business growth and perpetual productivity and found a nice groove where she spends more time with her kids than she does working. She maintains a part time job that she loves and keeps her business, LB Therapy, feeling joyful by maintaining a just right pace. She's defined success on her own terms, and you're going to want to hear all about it. Laura, thank you so much for coming. We've had so many good conversations over
Yeah,
DMs or, previous video conversations. So this is really great to do it in a podcast form.
absolutely. My very first pod as well.
Is it really?
It's really, yeah.
We should have had drinks to have a
I
cheers.
know. I probably go and get one.
That's wonderful. Well, I hope it's a good experience for you. I've come to really enjoy being on other people's podcasts, and that kind of informed choosing to create one myself.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Tell us a little bit about what you do.
So I'm a mental health occupational therapist. And at the moment, I'm working sort of part time in a college, supporting students with their mental health, and part time running my own business, occupational therapy / coaching, which I guess is like where a lot of us are falling at the moment. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing currently.
And what type of people are you helping with your private practice or your business, your coaching
Private
business?
practice is mostly women, sort of, I would say late 20s to mid 60s kind of
Mhm.
range. So quite a wide range. The thing that they all have in common really is that they are big givers. They give to everybody else, they care for everyone else, and they have very little left for themselves and sort of just reach that point where they're like, oh, hold on a minute.
Yes.
So where am I here? Like just feeling really lost or not seen, not heard, and actually sort of frustrated and resentful about that, but not quite sure what they would do otherwise. If that wasn't the case, what would they be doing? And a bit lost in that kind of middle zone of just feeling frustrated and resentful with no action about how to change that. So that seems to be who's attracted to me and to working with me. It wasn't really a conscious choice other than I did want to work with women, and I knew that there was a group of people who were kind of not unwell enough that they would seek support from traditional services, and also would really struggle to make that time to sit and talk about, for example, like in a counselling setting, just talk about how they feel. I don't mean just in a derogatory way, but
No.
without that kind of action. Like the females I work with like to know what they can do about it. And that's the kind of active therapy piece that that they're attracted to. So I sort of knew roughly that was who I wanted, and I have a deep belief that if women, particularly mums, are feeling better, then the whole family benefits from that,
Yeah.
especially the children. So that was kind of one of my motivators as well, I guess.
Are they
Yeah.
all mums?
Oh, no, I would say like 90%.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I do work with women who don't have children, and that brings up a whole load of other issues at times. So yeah, and I'm working with quite a few women who are sort of on that infertility journey as well.
And are you seeing people in groups individually?
Yeah, so most of the work is one-to-one, and
Mhm.
it's all done online, which I never ever thought that would happen. Um, And I also have a membership program, which is kind of a bit more of that slow drip support for people. And we run a session once a week in there. So that's been really great because it's all about that sort of fostering community as well. And two of the women I've met up outside of the group and gone for a walk together and that sort of stuff. So I love that space. That's a new format. We only started that in February and it's working really well. I do a lot of training and workshops and things like that as well that I kind of come across people, but it's less personal, I guess, because I'm just delivering material.
Yeah.
And then I have like a big Facebook group community, which I think there's something like 1,000, almost at 1,100 or maybe just on the mark there, making me matter. So that's a lovely big space for women. It has perhaps got too big, so people are not sharing as much. There's that sort of tipping point when that actually becomes a disadvantage. But it's great, and people get a lot of free support and resources and stuff from within that group. And the group really serves as a place for people to feel validated. Like, okay, right, you feel like that too. Good. Okay, it's not just me. Let's just normalize this.
Yeah.
Validate it. Understand why you feel the way you feel. But what are we going to do about it? What's the next step?
I really love that group. I enjoy the content that you share, and it definitely feels that way. So other people who are listening could potentially, if they were looking for that sort of support, potentially join Making Me Matter.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the more the merrier. That's what that group is. It's sort of, I'm redefining what that group is, what the purpose of it is. And if people can just be there and get what they need from it, then that's perfect. And the membership is kind of the step away from that. It's a bit more personal, it's a bit more action based, and I can be a bit more present in that space. Which I love.
That's great. I definitely have struggled to get my free Facebook group active. Like it's something that, and then sometimes that just feels disheartening. Like it can feel disappointing and that, oh, I guess nobody wants this. And often it's an algorithm thing. And, but I found it hard to stay consistent because of the emotionality of it maybe not being as successful as you thought.
Yes. And I think that's where my progress with the group has really taken off, is when I emotionally didn't see that as a success or a failure. Just continue to show up because that's what's value led for me. And then eventually, that has kind of taken on a life of its own. But why it worked and why other groups don't, I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. I think it's just, as you say, there's a lot of like variable factors in that we have no way of controlling, no matter how smart or dedicated or how much you show up or how many lives you do.
Does that tend to be a place that people find you for paid services?
No, actually, most of my sort of client work doesn't come from that group. So this is the
Mm.
other like misconception that if you have a massive Facebook community, then that automatically generates your clients. My Making Me Mark group does not generate my clients.
Wow.
Um, maybe there are people sitting in that group who are watching me, and and I always say whenever I comment on other posts or comments out in the social media world, I always say, come and join the group and just watch my videos and see what I talk about. And, if you think we're a good fit, then you can contact me.
Yeah.
So I do use it in that sense.
Yeah.
Um, but most
It,
of my clients come from recommendations or like I wrote one post about, I wrote a post about brushing your teeth. You know that the electric toothbrush and the
Mhm.
timer on it is 2 minutes.
Mhm.
And I was writing a post that I was standing brushing my teeth thinking, this electric toothbrush is broken. Like, this would not be 2 minutes long. Like, I'm here for like 20 minutes brushing my teeth. And like, come on, buzz, buzz, buzz. Hurry up. This must be the end of 2 minutes. It's such a random thing. And I thought, geez, okay, right, there's a red flag for me. Something is not right. If I cannot just be in my body for 2 minutes and brush my teeth, then something isn't right. And it's those everyday things that I try and write about. And I wrote that post and put it out, and I had 5 bookings on the back of that one post.
No
Yeah, that had
way.
it. And I thought, oh, nobody else is gonna be brushing their teeth thinking, this is a long time, 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I could have cleaned my whole house in the time it's taken.
That's
Um,
amazing. That is
so
amazing.
I think it's things like that that just connect with people, that cut through
Yeah.
all the noise,
Yeah.
land on
Relatable.
someone's phone, and they're
Mhm.
just like, "Yes, I felt like that." And I don't write that to get a booking, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's where my clients come from, is people who have read something and thought, "Yeah, I feel seen and
Yeah.
heard by that person."
Yeah.
Um,
You're very consistent with your Facebook group, so clearly there's a payoff for you. How does that align for you? What keeps you going?
because I'm OTing myself through
Mhm.
that process, and writing and trying to put words to what other people experience is just really therapeutic for me, and I really enjoy it. So if nobody was reading it and no one, I would be writing it in a journal or something. So I might as
Yeah.
well put it up there. And then when I see other women comment really supportive messages, and so I have a real message about that this isn't a place for advice. You can get millions of advice everywhere. I just want people to feel like they can say what they feel, they can explore what they might like to do about it, and nobody say, "Oh, have you tried this? Have you looked at that? Have you?" So when I see other people really jumping on board with that and following that ethos, it's amazing, because
Mm.
you just think, yes, like, you're growing community and a sense of belonging. And I think that's crucial at the
Mm.
moment. Well,
Mhm.
all the time, but particularly at the moment when society feels very segregated.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's the payoff for me, I guess.
That's great. This kind of is a good transition into the topic that we've been some of our more recent discussions in our DMs
Mm,
around how we had to adapt a lot of the coaching advice we've received or read or are bombarded by a lot of typical business coaching. Both of you and I often go, "Ooh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. That doesn't align with how I want to show up or my values or even professionally ethical."
I think it's fine that's out there, but there's a
Yeah.
real lack of the opposite, right? It's like it's the only way. That's what I
Yes.
struggle with about it. Like I could read it and ignore it if I was seeing as much of another alternative.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
becomes really common to see certain themes. But I was looking back at some of our conversations actually on that. And we've both talked about how it's pretty common in business coaching. So I'm not saying necessarily from other OTs. It's really common to sort of say, "Hey, here's your process, here's your step. Look at all these outcomes. Like so and so has 50K months and so went from this to this, and you follow this step and you can have that outcome as well." and you follow the steps or the ones you can ethically, and you don't get that outcome. And it's often a blamey, oh, well, it's your mindset, it's your money mindset, it's whatever block you have. But
Infuriating.
it's infuriating. Because really, like, as therapists too, we know that we can't overstate outcomes, right? And whether in this role we're not being therapists, but we can't say you do this and this is the outcome because nobody's done a study on some people get that outcome. But if you count all the people who didn't, is that really the outcome? And is it really that person's fault? This has worked for some people, but not everybody. So we tend to not want to overstate outcomes, but it feels really gross when we see it because people are stating it as though this is the recipe for
Yeah,
success.
absolutely. And all the language around that, like transformational coaching or, you know, sort of work out what your client's pain point is. Oh,
Mhm.
how awful does that sound? And
Mhm.
then poke it and then tell them what that transformation is going to be. And I find that really difficult language because the transformation is not for me to define or determine. Like everyone's journey to that is so different. I work with women all day, every day who feel like they're failing at life, right?
Yeah.
Like I had a client who was saying every day I try and do my breathing exercises. I sit there and I try and, I concentrate on my breathing, but my mind is just going everywhere. I was like, do you enjoy like breathing exercises? Well,
Yeah.
not really. Well, what music do you like? She'll
Mhm.
love Take That, right?
Mm.
I was like, maybe you could just put on Take That in the morning and just really sing. Like you'll use your you'll get your breathing going and then you'll enjoy that. And it's so we kind of swapped out these really structured breathing
Mhm.
techniques in the morning for just singing at the top of our lungs in the kitchen. And that switch was just amazing. And that's OT, right? Just those
Yeah.
little bits. So then I was thinking, well, I'm doing the same with my business here. I'm like trying to do things that I've been told
Yeah.
that are just the right things to do
Yeah.
because that's what, we're told.
Yeah.
People are told a lot of things are good for them in the well-being industry, and we're getting told a lot of things are good for us in the business industry. And then you just think, I'm not enjoying this. This is
Mhm.
not value led for me. And if we can just make these small tweaks, then I might actually develop or grow a business that I actually want to run.
Yes. You have to live
Right?
it, right? Like, it is hard work. It's hard internally. It's hard work to put yourself out there and start a business. And if you end up with a product that feels slimy and not aligned with who you are, you won't do that hard work. It'll
Yeah.
just feel gross.
Yeah, absolutely. And it just takes us further away from why we're different,
Mhm.
why people would seek out working with an occupational therapist versus a life coach or a counselor or a psychologist or a hypnotherapist, all these other people that operate within the same field,
Yeah.
but we have a different purpose, a different feeling, a different ethos. And, it's not to say that any of the other ones are wrong, but we can't then start an OT business and then be more like
Mhm.
something else
Yeah.
because then we're just generating loads of us that are doing the same thing. And you can see it. You read people's posts, you look at their social media, you look at their offerings, they're very similar. And I think certainly the
Yeah.
type of people that I work with, they see right through all of that stuff. They're not going to sign up for therapy when it says, oh, the next 5 lucky ladies will get it half price.
Mhm.
I don't want somebody to come to me because they feel a pressure. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing it the right way. But I'm doing it in a way that feels right for me and
That's
over
exactly it.
this
And
part.
that's gonna last. That's gonna be more durable than a person who blows up a big business with urgency tactics and all of those things that don't feel aligned, that might not be sustainable for them
Mhm.
because unless that is values aligned, maybe it will be.
Mm.
But you're building something that feels good and you're expanding your comfort. I see your confidence expanding too as I watch the
Oh,
evolution of your videos. And
yeah.
you're just like, yeah, this is me. Like, I'm
Yeah.
just going to show up. I'm going to share something off the top of my head without a script. And in the beginning, that wasn't so much how
No,
you could do
absolutely
it.
not.
Yeah.
And I think because now I know, okay, if this doesn't work, this is what I want. If this doesn't work, so be it. Yeah.
So be it. Yes.
So then I can show up more authentically, more brave, and just do it, because if it doesn't work, then that's okay, because I don't want to run something
Mhm.
that looks the opposite.
I think too, there's that function of it's the type of women we work with too. Like that because they're big feelers, they're experiencing the world in a loud way. They've got a heightened awareness and sensitivity to things that feel manipulative. And therefore, we can't go pushing pain points and being flashy with pressure because the clients we want actually hate that. Maybe some people, like I definitely know there are some others who are like, hey, I want the people who are going to go do the work they're ready to run. They want to hear a different message actually than the clients we want to work with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think really moving into this scarcity, abundance mindset, that, when you're in that abundant mindset, is that there are people for everybody.
Mm.
And I'm not competing with anyone. I remember the very first client that I worked with who just didn't click, and I was devastated, horrified that I'd done something wrong. And then I just think, no, they're just not my person, and that's fine. I'm not their therapist, and I want people to be with people that are, or work with somebody who's a good fit for them. And I reckon I turn away as much work as I accept now. I think
Yeah.
I actually could be really good with this person or that person, because I'm starting to get to know other therapists and coaches and counselors and everything as well. And I think that when you've got another job or another income, you can be more authentic with that, because
You don't have to
it's,
take all the work that comes
yeah,
your way. Yeah.
um, I think that's a very fortunate place to be in, and it's allowed me far more freedom
Yeah.
to explore this and grow it
Yeah.
as I want to.
I really think the work becomes easy. Just thinking about everything you just said, that some people aren't a good fit. I don't want everybody. I want people who are a good fit. And truly that makes your job kind of easy because all you have to do is show up and be you. You don't have to sound like anybody else. You don't have to put on anything or try to appeal to certain people. You just go and be you. And the right people then will come. That makes the marketing easier. It makes the therapy or coaching easier.
Yes. Yeah. And for anybody who's listening to this thinking about setting up their own businesses, that's one of the absolute beauties of it, is that you can step out of these services where you have to work in a certain way, you have to work with certain people, often people who don't want to work with you. And you have the freedom to really use your OT role to its full potential.
Hmm.
That's what I absolutely love about it. And I never want to give that up now. Now I've experienced it, and I've never felt more like an OT than I do currently in the last couple of years. And that's both with my job, my paid employment, and with my private work. There's the two complement each other really well. And I think this idea of like the side hustle, or that you don't trust yourself enough to just go for it. And there's a real beauty in having the two together.
I totally agree. And you and I've drawn those parallels too, where for you, it's the job. And for me, my private practice is old. I started it many years ago. And so that had become a steady income. And it's in the last couple of years that I started working with group coaching and coaching other occupational therapists and offering an online program. And so it's that part that is the effort to grow and expand and find my way to align the messaging and the people and my values and who they are and all of those things, and to establish that as a steady income. I'm not there yet. Like, it's not steady. It's wonderful. I love what happens in there. Like, the people that show up are just the right people and they support each other so beautifully. And I love seeing these multifaceted expansions and their personal growth, their business, like finding more alignment in their businesses. And I love, love, love that. But also continuing to do the OT work that I actually love provides that base of income. But I never wanted to not be an OT. And so it's great that I was saying no to a lot of OT work for years, and I still do, but I'm saying no to
Mhm.
less of it now to provide less urgency, because that's where I was feeling the grind and that pressure, that hustle habit. was coming from a sense of, but this is so good. It should be consistent with income. Like I just have to figure out whatever, and then it'll be consistent. And that was driving a habit of hustle, and which I don't want. And I can continue to do the work that's worked for me all along. And ooh, I find my nervous
Yeah.
system more regulated. I
Yeah.
can, like, I think you said in one of your message, you can approach your work with more playfulness
Yeah.
with it doesn't
Fun.
feel
Have
like,
fun with
yeah,
it. Yeah, absolutely. And you just say, okay, I'm going to try that, and it doesn't work. I did the opposite in that I was keeping my job going. I was building this business, and I hit burnout the opposite way, of trying to basically do two jobs in the same amount of hours, or just basically working every evening and seeing clients in my lunch break and all of this sort of stuff. It got too much to balance the two.
yeah,
I was sort of always waiting for this elusive tipping point. When do you get to this tipping point where actually you know that the business can carry your salary on
yeah.
its, and then actually then thinking, well, hold on a minute, what, like, do I want that? Do I
Mm,
want, because actually I like being part of a team. I like having an office to go into, and I like sharing what people have done at the weekend, and I like getting holiday pay
yeah,
and sick pay and pension contributions.
yeah,
So there's lots and lots of benefits to that. And actually, I have a perfect balance that I work term time. I have a term time contract, so I'm off on
okay,
the holidays with my kids. And
perfect.
well, it really forced me to cool back and say, okay, we can't just grow for growth's sake, right? Like, you have this idea of what success looks like. Really forced me to pull back and think, what does my version of success look like?
Yeah,
What would that look like on a kind of daily basis? And then really that helped me to just live in the moment of what I've got. So I've scaled back the business, I've scaled back my job. So I've dropped hours at work, I've scaled back how many people I work with. And then now we just have this nice balance.
mm,
And right now, success is what I'm experiencing right now. And it might not look like that in 5 years time, or even a year's time, right? Then
yeah,
the balance might shift a little bit again. But as long as this week looks like the balance that I want, next week does, then that's kind of all I have to worry about right now. I don't have this big vision of what I want LB therapy to look like in 10 years' time. And that would be unadvisable if you followed a lot of the business
yeah,
coaching advice. You'd have
yeah.
this big vision, you'd have this target salary. Um, I don't have any of that.
No, no. And truly, happiness isn't the thing you strive for. Happiness is found in appreciating what you have. And if we are constantly striving and moving the target so you get to whatever your SMART goal was for the
Yeah.
year, you need to set another target. Great. Awesome. Let's carry on. Where else can we go? That can be enjoyable. I'm not saying it's bad to
Yeah.
grow your business, but truly, that's not how you find happiness. Like, happiness is truly like,
Mm.
how do I appreciate what is here? How do I appreciate enjoying the aspects of my job? Is this right? What needs to change? Like, where do I end up feeling stress? Where do I end up feeling not like myself? Where do I run out of energy? And you did a beautiful job of going, oh, actually, I know. I need to pull these things both down, up, like, need to pull them into the right proportion
Yeah.
for my piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And that doesn't involve sort of putting your prices up in some areas and keeping them lower in other areas. And it's not to say that pulling things down means earning less or doing less. It's just that balance just wasn't right, just wasn't in check. And I had no real vision of what I was growing for or
Mhm,
towards.
mhm.
There's a great book, a friend recommended this book called Company of One. Don't know if
Right.
you've read it.
No, I
It's
haven't.
Paul Jarvis. A brilliant book. And he talks about the real benefits of being a company of one and staying small, actually,
Mhm.
and trying to define, rather than this sort of big stretchy goal, like what's actually enough. Like, you have to work out what's enough first.
Yeah.
And then when that just feels satisfying,
Yeah.
because you could always strive for more. And exactly what you say, like, one of the things I talk about with clients a lot is like that we're saving this happiness for a future version of ourselves. And it's the same with business. You could just infinitely keep chasing
Yeah.
more clients, more salary, less hours, higher rates, whatever it is. Well, actually, you need to work out, okay, what can I enjoy right now? So, like right now, I don't work a Wednesday afternoon and I don't work a Thursday, and I have Friday off with my kids, and I spend more time with my kids than I do at work. And that, for me, that's success right now. While they're young, interestingly, I listened to one of your other podcasts, your other episodes with somebody who, can't remember the lady's name, but she was talking about schooling, unschooling.
Carrie
Um,
Gillen Waters. Yeah.
yes, and that was so good because I too have started flexi schooling my eldest, and we've kind of been learning together about this,
Mhm.
stepping out of the hustle. Both of us, her just as an 8-year-old girl in school, and me just in this sort of weird space of whatever success is meant to look like and what process I'm meant to be following, learning together to just rest, go for walks in the woods, and
Mm.
not have productivity or an outcome as such, a defined
Mhm.
outcome of that day. So that was really interesting parallel that when I was listening to her episode as
Oh, I love, love, love that. I was just in New Zealand visiting my cousin who had a baby there. She's from Canada and her husband's doing his PhD there. And they just had this baby far away from family. So hopped down
well.
there. And an important piece of the story is that flights are not as expensive for me because my husband works for an airline. So I was able to
Okay.
fly a standby for, it wasn't cheap, cheap, but it was
Yeah.
pretty cheap compared to a full fare. And so I went with the goal of maybe seeing a bit of New Zealand, but really it was about connecting with family and giving a bit of relief to these new parents and snuggling a baby
Mm.
and loved it. Loved it, loved it, loved it. And in that time I really reflected on what success means to me. What do I actually really want life to feel like? Where do I get caught up? What are sort of those faulty wiring, faulty messages that catch me up into this productivity thing that I don't I don't align with in a values sort of way. And when I think rationally, I can tell you all the reasons that I don't ascribe to many of those ways of we must make the most of every minute, we must be productive. But at the same time, that we've been raised in this culture that actually, when I read more about it too, it kind of dates back to more industrial revolution, right? Actually, I had a really good conversation with Trish Williams on the OTs Get Paid podcast about this. But back to this sense of before people were working in factories and people were hiring jobs and needing to get efficiency out of them and pay them per hour, it was more that you did a task. So a farmer worked to get the task done, the task of that day, the task of that season, and then you rested. And it wasn't that I need to put in 12 hours a day or I need to put in 40 hours a week. You did a task and then you also did other things. And they weren't striving for work life balance. There were just all sorts of different occupations naturally within their lives. And many of the things took a lot of time. Thinking about that, I was thinking about it when you were talking about your 2 minutes to brush your teeth, right? And they didn't have all the modern appliances we had. And there's a simplicity of doing wash and hanging it on the line
Mhm.
and slowing down to do tasks because in our kind of praised productivity world, we just feel like, "Oh gosh, I have to wait like 10 seconds for this browser that got stuck,"
Yes.
or right? Just everything's urgent. We can't possibly slow down and just
Yeah.
go for a walk. We gotta listen to a podcast or, something like that. Not that I'm judging any of you who are listening while you're in your downtime. I do it too, but we're
Yeah.
constantly wanting to make the most out of our time and feel productive.
Absolutely. It's all of these gains, all of the time that we're buying back with this amazing, efficient technology, transport, or whatever. All of these things are amazing, but all we're using that extra time for is working.
To do more.
Just like
Exactly.
working on more. It's like, hold on a minute. Like, when do we start buying back the other stuff, the other time for ourselves? And sort of in this on well, exactly the same theme I was reading that and up until the sort of 1950s, the word priority was only used in a singular sense, right?
Oh, it wasn't
And
priorities. Higher
no, it was
priority.
priority. So like it would whenever you saw that words kind of 1950s previous, it was always used in or almost always used in a singular term.
Mm.
Whereas now it's just, we talk about our priorities and there's loads of them, right? It's all the things. We're trying to do all the things all the time. And we're just chronically exhausted and yeah,
Mm.
just burnt out. And it's such a big issue for so many people.
Yeah.
And that's again another one of your episodes in this. They're talking about that the OTs are needed more than ever now. It was the lady who's a corporate coach.
Jill
Yeah.
Garaffa.
And she was saying that OTs are, we're pioneers. We're needed right now and this. People just have got no idea what way's up and what they should be doing and what their priority is.
Mm.
So I hope that we can, as a collective, step into that space and really start to own it.
And we really
And
have to live it though, too. Like
I know, yeah.
Yeah, in order to be able to support others. And sometimes we can be really good at others and looking at how their week has gone and go, "Oh, wow, that's a lot of this. Have you thought about inserting a break here or something enjoyable there or something energizing there?" And all of these things, but do we do it for ourselves?
Absolutely.
No.
And they were all, I mean, that's human nature, right? I remember
Yeah.
you saying that when you're on your own mountain, you can't see, but you can look over to someone else's mountain and you can see, oh, okay, yeah, you're going off track there. So I think that's human nature, isn't it? But I think stopping every so often and kind of being like, okay, well, wait a minute. Is this what I want? Is this like my sort of motto at the moment is just stay small, define success and keep learning. Because as soon as you start kind of just, I'll develop this course and I'll shove this out there and I'll start this membership and whatever, you're just like an octopus with like roller skates on, you do too many pies because I'm still a mum, I'm still a wife, I'm still a daughter, I still have all of these other roles. So and when you have a small business like this, like us, then your social media, your marketing, your accountant, your like, it's so much. I had no idea what was involved. And I think that all of that puts people off, but you can just start small. I started with one program, one workshop that I'd written. It's an hour and a half long. I just started with that. And then I said, oh yeah, I could work with that person and that person, 1, 2, 3 clients. And now I don't know how many women I've worked with, but a lot.
But taking that one small product with kind of low risk, right? It's okay if it doesn't land, but in the process, you learn how to create a landing page, put a product together, put it on a platform where people can access it. You learn how to take payment. You learn how to market. You learn how to, there are a whole bunch of things that you learn how to do with one small little product that is not going to make or break you. But now you can make other things once you've just tried
Yeah,
that one thing. Yeah.
absolutely. And I spent months doing my website. It's not even a very good website, but I did it. And I'm really proud of that.
Yeah.
And so I was learning through that, which is like ticked off some of my values and stretched me a little bit. I'm learning that my resilience or just people's resilience comes from their ability to be realistic and also be stretchy, and like push themselves a little bit. But there's this balance between the two. Like you can't just be all go getting
No.
because it's not realistic. And
I like to think about it like a muscle, right? That you can't keep a muscle on a stretch for a long period of time, right? You need to stretch, or you also shouldn't stretch past the point of that, into like a really painful stretch, right? That's also not healthy. And so being able to gently stretch and you repeat that some few times, right? And then that gets
absolutely.
easier and you can stretch a little further.
Yeah. If you've got an idea or you think, no, I want to do that, then just start small. You don't have to pay people to do your website straight away or sign up for programs. I've wasted loads of money on programs, like embarrassingly amount of money on things that I've just sat through and thought, I can't implement any of that. It's just not OT. And it does, like I remember just feeling several times through this journey. I'm just coming up for 2 years now. thinking, oh my goodness, like I've made a big mistake. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't think in quarters of the year or turnover, or I just don't, my brain just doesn't think that way. And if I had just stayed in my own lane, I wouldn't have felt like that. I wouldn't have felt like that as much. Like I didn't need to do those things. You just don't need it. Don't just stay in your own lane.
Because it really
What do you
feeding
think
that
that?
sense of comparison, but so and so over there must be so successful, and
Yeah.
I, by comparison, am not. Well, you actually don't know how successful so and so
Oh,
is. Like, they might say they are, and or like people often think that I'm doing better than I am because I'm so visible, but the visibility is to try and get more work, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean
absolutely.
success. Yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. That's why I think like my Facebook group is a good example of that. You think, oh, she's got a huge group. She must have X amount of work from that. I don't. It's not where my work comes from. And I don't want it to. That's fine. People are there for support. And that's okay. I don't want to be in there selling to them all the time. That's not what I'm about.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, and I think the more you start to get into these sort of business groups and cliques,
Yeah.
you realize actually the back end of businesses is nothing like what's presented. And you shouldn't feel embarrassed or to say like, actually, I do have another income, or my goal is to stay small and do this really, really well. You know, like I want everybody I work with to go and say, she's really good.
Mm. Mm.
Not like, yeah, it was okay. I got a few bits from it.
Yeah.
Like I've left loads of courses feeling like, yeah, I got one or two things. Like I want to be the best at what I do
Yeah.
with the people that I work with. And you can't do that if you have a business that's huge.
What I hear when you talk is a lot of clarity in who you are, what you value, how you want to show up in your business, how you want to show up in your life. And are there things you do to remain grounded in that? Like, how do you not get swept away by all of the things that can pull us away from that?
Well, I do get swept away with it
Okay.
every so often. And it always comes from looking at other people. Yeah. And then I stay grounded in it by talking to people like you. When I talk through how I feel, what I think, nah, that's not who I am. This is who I am. This is what I want to do. And actually, whenever I've had growth in my business, whether that's, let's just say, financial growth in the
Mhm.
business, it's been when I have been most authentic and most aligned with who I am. Whenever I step outside of that, it doesn't go well. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't flow. So that's always my warning sign, isn't it? That I just need to rein it back in a little bit.
Like, in behind that, though, is there had to be a point where you came to acknowledge that exactly who you are is what's needed. And I see some people who they're trying to sound like other people because they don't think they're good enough. And
Mhm.
was there a place in your journey where you came to believe in your worth so that you could know that you just have to keep coming back to being you?
Oh, jinx. That's a big question.
It kind of is, isn't it?
Yeah, it
It's
really
not like
is.
it was one day and it arrived on your doorstep, but
No,
um,
I think we just grow in confidence. You know, sort of this idea of confidence and self-worth and self-esteem and self-efficacy. Oh my word, they all get really confused. And I feel like they're almost overused sometimes,
yeah.
that people are so confused they don't actually know what's what. So I always sort of think of this idea of like confidence in myself is that you don't believe that you can just ride a bike, right? Like you ride the bike and then you feel confident that you can ride the bike.
Exactly.
And that's the same with this stuff, is that you just, as a young therapist or a new graduate therapist, you think, "Jing, I don't really know what OT is." You know, I left uni not really sure what occupational therapy was. I think most of
You're
us
not
do.
alone. Yeah,
Kind of come
exactly.
out and it's a bit wishy-washy, and you go into these big teams. You know, I went into the NHS and I went into the local government teams and all of that. And you're one of 100. And you think, I don't really know what my unique skill set is here.
Yeah.
And I guess just over the years that then you grow in confidence in that role. Yeah. You're
Mhm.
like, okay, I'm an OT in a psychiatric hospital.
Yeah.
And you start to learn what that is. And then you move somewhere else and you've lost that. And you think, okay, right now I know what an OT is in a social work team. And it's been the same in private practice. It's just that every person I work with, you know, I keep refining what I'm doing, what I'm talking about, trusting the process more, maybe trusting that I can just be there. I don't need a tool. I don't need a workshop. I don't need to pull something out my back pocket. The more that I've just leaned into that, I think Rhiannon Chris talks about that a lot as well, that like you are the tool.
Mhm.
So the more that I've leaned into that, the more my confidence is growing. And likewise, the better my outcome is with clients, or not my outcome, their outcome, because then they start to feed off that they feel empowered,
Mhm.
that they can just be themselves too, and really hold in that space that we can both just show up. And I'm very open about my own sort of thoughts and journey and stuff as well within sessions. And that just helps, I think, to level that field between us, between me and client.
I-
Um,
I'm really hearing in as you tell this too, I'm hearing there's a consistent reflective practice. And you even said earlier too that the Facebook group, you're often just sharing your reflections. And if you
mm,
wasn't there, you'd be writing it in a journal.
yeah,
And that pause, notice, pay attention to what's happening, pay attention to how
mhm,
you're responding, how others are responding. That is so necessary to be more intentional. Whereas if
mhm,
we're constantly go, 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 multitask, doing 10 things at once, we don't pause to pay attention. We just keep doing the next thing on automatic or what we were told or from the 10 courses that we took. And you can't get to that place of authentic flow without pausing to know what the factors are that find that alignment, that define the values, that define what success is in your life, which clients really feel like magic to work with, that you would work with them
mhm.
for free if you had limitless finances.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. I would always do this job. Even if I win the lottery, I would do this job. Maybe wouldn't do as many hours, let's be honest, but I would.
totally.
So I think it is just that the confidence comes, the more you do,
Yeah.
the the better that's consistently received well. And yeah, I spend a lot of time wondering, thinking, reflecting, whatever words, getting curious, just when I just don't feel right in my own skin, and what could be causing that.
And the
And
the contrast too in out there in the coaching world is when you don't feel confident, it's often suggested that you need to have more affirmations. You need to change your limiting beliefs. You need to believe it and it'll happen. You need to manifest this.
mm,
And both of us are going, you can't build confidence without doing it. So go do
yeah,
some stuff and figure it out. And
absolutely. And I know in my body when it's a limiting belief that's coming from anxiety,
Mm,
and when it's just not authentic, when
yeah,
it's just not aligned. And there's a difference with that. And I think that it's naive to just label it all as limiting beliefs, that you can just be anything you want. Well, you can't, do you know?
yeah.
Let's, I will never be an Olympic gymnast. It's not value led for me. My muscles just don't bend in that way. I love lots of food. So there's just like, it's just, yes, absolutely. If you can be focused on one thing and it's absolutely aligned in all aspects of your life, then yes, you can go and do that.
And
This
lean
idea,
into the discomfort or nervousness or
yes,
anxiety that comes with
absolutely.
the stretch. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love my sort of big vision is that I'd love to do more public speaking. I would like to be speaker at a conference or something like that. That feels stretchy for me. It feels uncomfortable. I have some limiting beliefs around that, around imposter syndrome. Do you know, I'm aware of that. I can see that and it feels different. But
Mhm,
dropping into someone's DM saying your life looks like it sucks, I
mhm,
can transform you,
mhm.
like that is, there's a ugh with that, and that's not limiting belief, that's just not aligned.
Yeah.
And there's so many more ways to success than that, than following that path. And see, as soon as you put your head above the parapet of like, oh, I've got a new business, I'm a coach, you are prime meat for these business coaches.
Mhm.
You are their client. That's
Yeah.
they're not doing you a favor. They're like, they want to sell you something. They want to sell you this 3-step program to 6-figure months. I don't know anybody that's earning that. Like, it is just ridiculous. You can't have that from nothing, from no audience, for no trust, for no people knowing who you are. There's not something wrong with you. It's just not good advice.
And I'm thinking about the last few years, like that's when we've been learning a lot of these things in the last few years. The climate has changed immensely. 2020, everybody went online for connection and to reinvent and create new ways of working. And people were open and wanting to connect. And now, 3 years later, people are hesitant, cautious. We're having economic changes that people are feeling the effects of the income suppression over those years. And then inflation and groceries are expensive, energy's expensive. It's all changed. And often we're still being sold the same tactics that worked 3 years ago.
Yeah, the message behind that as well, if it's to do, people will always spend money on their health or their children, or I can't remember the third one. But that's true. But I don't want somebody to work with me that puts them in a financial position that they can't afford. As an OT, we want to make sure those basic needs are there, because actually any change can't happen until those basic needs are met. And that's like, when you look at kind of change, sustainable change, it's always grassroots up, right? Like, that's what works.
Yeah.
So I remember a client coming to me saying, "Oh, I've got this amount of money and I could maybe do a couple of sessions here and there." And we had a chat about it. I said, "You should buy a cleaner. You should hire a cleaner with that money. Hire me. Like, just have a couple of months of a cleaner coming in and then come back." And she did. She went away. She got a cleaner for a couple of months.
Mm.
Felt like her environment was a bit calmer, a bit more organized. And then she was in a space for therapy. Would never be afraid to say that to people. Like, because when you're authentic and you're genuine and people can see that, then they come back. You just have to trust that
Absolutely.
if you're right for somebody, they will come back.
I do that a lot too. When some people will call me just from my website for OT services, and if it's not something I do, or they can get that for free somewhere else, I'll spend 20 minutes pulling together some resources quite often to send them an email with some links. And absolutely. Are you ready for the questions I ask people at the end?
Siblings, yeah. Let's go.
Okay. What does being brave mean to you?
I guess just exactly what we've been talking about. Just ultimately saying, I'm just going to do me, and it's going to be a slower path. And if that works, great. If it doesn't, that's fine too. Because just being really clear on what your meaningful purpose is and sticking to that when other voices might tell you that it doesn't make good business sense.
Being brave enough to be yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds so simple, but it's not.
It's not, is it? It really isn't.
Yeah. What is something brave you've done recently?
I guess it's probably taken out of the purely work context. As a family, we've made some bigger decisions, like flexi schooling. My daughter, just getting a bit more balance with the family, stepping out of kind of what we're told is just normal or just has to be. I feel like I'm really, really living the sort of advice that I would give other people. And that's probably for the first time in my life, if I'm honest, that really, like, this OT process has really come into my own life in all aspects. And there's been raised eyebrows about some of my decisions there or whatever. So that's probably like the sort of bravest act that I've taken recently, to really cut back and step out of that race, but still have one foot in it too, and I always find that hard to find people that were talking about the middle ground. Actually, one of the very first posts I put out for LB therapy was about being this middle space of kind of acknowledging, yeah, that's not so good, but also I don't want to live on a hill killing my own animals and growing vegetables. I want to have one foot in this world, but I also want to have one foot in doing my own thing and having that sense of freedom and choice. And I feel like we've just got that balance. Which is, yeah.
How would you like to see OTs be a little bit more brave?
I'd like to see us calling ourselves OTs. Maybe this is another episode, the use of the title occupational therapy versus coach. Again, when you start your own practice, I was heavily advised to call myself a coach and drop the OT. People don't know they need an OT. They're not looking for OTs. It doesn't make good business sense. But actually, for me, the occupational therapy title is very important. I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of what I do.
Mhm.
Proud of like us as a collective, the type of people we are. So I would like to see us owning that a little bit more. And I know there's a whole discussion on that.
Mm.
So I guess that, and then stepping into these places that is our skill set. Like
Yeah.
I would like us to get clear on what our skill set is. And then I know again that's really difficult to do.
Yep.
Um, but to be able to define that articulately and take up space at, particularly in this private well-being industry, there's not many of us doing it.
And there are a lot of unskilled people making claims about things that work that don't work in that space, earning a lot of money,
Yeah,
and that doesn't help. I don't think everything has to be completely evidence-based with
no,
double-blind studies or things like that, but when there's stuff that's actually been proven not to work, and we know that, they don't know that, and it's really hard to watch.
yeah,
Well,
and then leaving a lot of disillusioned people in their paths, and that's not okay. And as OTs, we can't settle for that.
yeah. I know the struggle with the OT versus coach is something I struggled with for years before I ever started any coaching too. Because I was like, no, I want to be an OT. I don't want to be a life coach or something like that. And then as I moved along, I recognized, okay, people are searching. People aren't searching for an OT for what they need. So one needs to be searchable. Lots of people are searching for an OT for what they need, but sometimes the types of clients that we're trying to help don't know that an OT can do that. And so being able to kind of be searchable in a way that they're looking, but then also be clear that you're an OT in doing so, where I still continue to work at advocacy actually is that I can only do that when people are in certain regions. And because I'm working online, I could never be your OT. I'd have to register in the UK. And so most of my clients, I can't be their OT, and I would love to call it OT, but there are restrictions on how we're regulated. And so I certainly keep working with talking with our regulatory body, and there are changes. Like I know in Canada, there are certain provinces where we can work with people in the other province. In the US, I know they're doing that too. I know in Australia, it's national. They're registered nationally, and I think it's in the UK too. You can see people through all of the UK, right? If you're
Yeah,
registered. But that international, I think, will be a bigger stretch over
yeah.
time. Yeah.
I know part of me feels like it should be where the OT is sitting. If
Yeah.
you're sitting in Calgary talking
Yeah.
to me here, then it should be okay. But yeah, I get that. And I think i- it's just one of these things that the profession is going to have to catch up with the way that people are actually trying to practice and not be a hindrance to that. I can see why people walk away from their, for the UK side, from the HCPC registration and things like that. It's a lot of money when you don't feel like it's serving you as a therapist. But I just think for all of the creativity that the 100 years of OTs before us
Yeah.
have done, that we owe it to our profession really to create these career pathways for other OTs to follow. And I think it was one of the episodes the lady was talking about that her dream is to have not just 3 pathways. You go into the hospital, you go into education, or you go into the local authorities. Like hopefully OTs coming out behind us will have loads of options of how they can. I haven't met many OTs that I don't like. Like
Mhm.
we're good people, and that curiosity and wonder and exploring ideas, like that is what people are craving. Like just go on this website or just scan this QR code and get the answer, or ask Alexa. I feel like they're tired of that almost, and we want to pull back into ourselves and yeah, feel empowered that we've got the ideas.
I have loved this conversation. Now, if people would like to connect with you to ask any questions, how would you like them to find you?
So just through my website, it's just www.lb-ot.com.
Okay.
And so, yeah, and there's a contact form there and on all the social medias as well, LB Therapy -OT.
Okay. I will also put the link in the show notes.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's like I'm fangirling you right now because I've listened to like all of the episodes and I love what you're doing. So thank you for having me.
I feel like we've been walking this journey side by
Yeah.
side. Like our first conversation was a couple of years ago as we were trying to figure all these things out ourselves. And I appreciate having you as a collaborator or a co-conspirator share in, because sometimes you can feel you're the only one with these values. And
Absolutely.
that's, yeah, appreciate you. I wish that defining success on your own terms and creating a business that's more focused on feeling joyful and aligned than it is on rapid expansion wasn't a brave act, but it really is. So I challenge the listeners of the Brave OT podcast to pause and define what success is to you. If you have a business, define what success is in your business. And then note what it would look like in your day to day occupations. Like if I had a video camera and recorded you, old school, like an old video camera, and recorded you being successful by this definition, what would I see? I like to call these occupational representations of success on your own terms key vitality indicators, KVIs, a spin on KPIs, which are key performance indicators, and make a lot of OT business owners go, "Ugh." Pick a few and write them down. Maybe once a week, look back on your week and see how many of your KVIs you can check off as present in your days. Maybe you want to share this episode with a friend and check in with them once a week by text message when you do this. You can share each other's KVI score. Not that we need to score it, but letting each other know and having some accountability is key. In order to resist the pressure of our rapidly speeding up world, we need to surround ourselves with people who are resisting the pressure as well. The people to whom you can say, I canceled that thing because I'm tired and it felt misaligned, and who will give you a hell yes response. As social creatures, we learn from those we spend time in community with. If you have an OT business of any size and you need a community of OT business owners who are going to help you be more grounded, stay aligned with your values, and gently point out you might be getting off track, we should talk. That's the whole purpose of Activate Vitality, the program and the mastermind. You can learn all about it at www.balanceworks.online/AV program and book a chat with me to explore if this is indeed the thing you need to get from where you are now to finding success on your own terms, more peace, ease, and playfulness in your business. As always, be brave, OTs.